I want to tell you about a man so powerful he thought he could fight God himself. His name was Nimrod, and according to the book of Genesis, he was a mighty warrior. A title that in the ancient Near East meant far more than just military strength. This was around 4,000 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, where civilization itself was being forged. Nimrod wasn't just a king, he was a force of nature, a giant among men who would build an empire and then make the most audacious challenge in human history. Let's start with who Nimrod actually was. Genesis 10:8-9 calls him a mighty warrior before the Lord and a mighty hunter. In ancient Mesopotamian culture, this wasn't just about tracking animals. It meant dominance over chaos, protection of civilization, and the divine right to rule. Some traditions describe Nimrod as a man of African descent, a belief rooted in his lineage through Cush, son of Ham, connecting him to the regions south of Egypt. Whether this reflects historical ethnicity or symbolic geography, it places him within the diverse tapestry of ancient Near Eastern peoples. But what truly set Nimrod apart was his physical presence. Legends describe him as a giant, towering over ordinary men, his very stature a symbol of his power and ambition. He founded cities, Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in Shinar, then expanded into Assyria to build Nineveh and Rehoboth-ir. These weren't just settlements, they were the foundations of empire, urban centers where thousands gathered under his rule. Nimrod transformed scattered tribes into a unified kingdom, creating the world's first post-flood superpower through conquest, innovation, and sheer force of will. At the height of his power, Nimrod conceived a project that would define his legacy: the Tower of Babel. According to Genesis 11, humanity at this time spoke one language and shared one purpose. Nimrod rallied them with a vision: to build a city and a tower with its top in the heavens to make a name for themselves. Archaeologically, this aligns with Mesopotamian ziggurats, massive stepped pyramids that served as temples and symbols of cosmic connection. But Nimrod's tower was different. This wasn't worship. This was conquest. The construction was monumental. Thousands labored to fire bricks and lay them with bitumen, raising the structure higher and higher. The tower became a testament to human unity and technological achievement, but also to something darker: defiance. Ancient rabbinical texts claim Nimrod openly challenged God, declaring that if another flood came, he would be ready, and that he would ascend to heaven itself to settle accounts. A giant king commanding a unified humanity, building a stairway to confront the divine. The audacity was unprecedented. God's response was swift and surgical. Genesis 11:7 records the decision: "Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other." In an instant, the unified workforce descended into chaos. Workers who had coordinated perfectly now shouted incomprehensibly at one another. Construction halted. Confusion turned to frustration, then conflict. The project that was meant to unify humanity instead scattered it across the earth, each group carrying away a different tongue. The tower itself, whether through divine intervention, structural collapse, or abandonment, was left incomplete, disintegrating into ruin. What had been a monument to human achievement became a cautionary tale about the limits of mortal ambition. The very name Babel became synonymous with confusion, derived from the Hebrew word meaning to confuse. This wasn't just architectural failure, it was the fracturing of human unity itself, explaining in ancient terms why civilizations speak different languages and why we remain divided. But Nimrod's story doesn't end with Babel. According to later Jewish and Islamic traditions, the giant king's pride demanded a more personal confrontation. He allegedly shot arrows into the sky, challenging God to face him in direct combat. The response came not in thunder or earthquake, but in something impossibly small: a fly. This tiny insect entered Nimrod's body, some accounts say through his nostril, and lodged itself in his brain. The mightiest warrior on earth, the giant who had built an empire and challenged heaven, was brought to his knees by a creature he could barely see. For years, the fly tormented him. The constant buzzing and pain drove him to madness. He commanded servants to strike his head with hammers, seeking any relief from the agony. The man who had commanded armies, who had unified nations, who had built towers to the heavens, died in excruciating suffering from the smallest of God's creatures. The message was unmistakable. Divine power doesn't need to match human strength. It transcends it entirely. A giant felled by a fly. An empire builder reduced to desperate agony. Pride, no matter how towering, finds its level. Nimrod's story echoes through millennia as a warning about hubris. Whether historical king or legendary archetype, his narrative captures a timeless truth. Ambition unchecked by humility leads to ruin, and the mightiest can fall through the smallest means. From a mighty warrior who built the first empire to a tormented king undone by a fly, Nimrod's arc reminds us that challenging the divine, or overreaching our human limits, carries consequences. His tower crumbled, his people scattered, and his legacy became not one of triumph, but of cautionary legend.